As we all know, 2020 wasn't a great year for us, or pretty much anybody. But the fact that the pandemic ruined the plans and goals of many truly knocked us off course. Some say it was a burning trash heap from the beginning, and in some parts of the country it literally was during the first months of the year. The world was suddenly forced to look into the lens of a year filled with seclusion, trauma, death, illness, civil strife, and political divisions. With all that in sight, with all that noise, with all that chaos ringing in our ears and being sought forcibly to see upon our eyes, the question lies in the many minds of Christians today: where was God in all this? You see, it really depends on which lens you look on. But as believers in Christ Jesus and as followers of the gospel, we're not supposed to look at the lens of this world, but we're supposed to gaze upon the beautiful lens of our God. As you can see in 2 Corinthians 5:7, let me read it to you. For while we are still in this tent, we groan, being burdened, not that we be unclothed, but that we would be further clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. He who has prepared us for this very thing is God. He who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. So we are always of good courage. We know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord, for we walk by faith and not by sight. Yes, we are of good courage, and we would rather be away from the body and at home in the Lord. So whether we are at home or away, we make it our aim to please Him. See, we Christians are not supposed to live in fear, but we're supposed to live in boldness and in courage in Christ Jesus. We are called to fellowship and discipleship, as well as being marked by our passion to share the gospel to the nations. You see, 2020 marked a year in which all of us were tossed into the abyss of uncertainty and doubt. And as the new year begins, we Christians should not live in fear, but yet we should live as we were called, to become the light of the world, to be that light and to be that salt in the world, even in these dark times. I know you're probably thinking, so Jamari, so what, you want me to do God's work? Yeah, go do God's work. Yes, go live life without fear. I'm just saying, don't let fear be the cause of your justification for you to burn out in both your life and in your servants to God. And that's really what our lives as Christians ought to be. And if you do, many Christians will be mad at you, and that's a given. You will be persecuted by stepping out of the borders of this world. 2020 was a year of fear for some, but for many Christians it was a year in which when our faith grew and when it was tested. But with that, our rights to worship Jesus freely was put to the test. And what's more interesting is that the church fought with more worship. Do you think that God was nowhere to be found? No, He was moving. There were many Christians and pastors who put aside all the COVID laws in their cities just for the sake of the gospel. And some pastors and leaders were fined and were jailed. In the eyes of the world, it looked dangerous for people to gather and worship the Lord. And truly, it was justified by the world that it was dangerous. But as Christians, in the eyes of the Lord, it was an act of faith. Because as Christians, we can't be, tamed in one place. You see, in the eyes of faith, we saw what was going on, and it was wrong. But we acted in faith as one against the limitations of our rights to worship Jesus freely in the marketplace. And you know what's weird? It took 2020 just to realize that we've grown too comfortable. Some Christians will get mad and say, "Oh, you're not using wisdom. You're endangering the lives of many." But let me put it this way. If you knew that currently, today, 350,000 people have died of COVID-19 and knew that every single death, all 350,000 people that died of that disease did not know Jesus Christ, what would you do? What would you do? If you knew, would you would you be more passionate to share the gospel and go out of the comfort zones? Go out into the limitations of the governments? Yes, give Caesar what is Caesar's and give God's what is God's. But what if God tells you to move out, to share the gospel? Let me share something with you. About 2 months ago, I was asking, because 2 months ago it was only 250,000, 230,000 people that died. I said to the Lord, I hope those 250,000 people that died, who passed, got to know you. And in my spirit, I said, and in my spirit, I felt the Lord, press in me that one person who does not know Jesus is too much for the Lord. And he said, how much more can 200,000 people who do not know me? That's why we see God move in 2020 and into 2021 and witness movements of revival like the Let Us Worship movement led by Feucht and the Stand by Pastor Rodney Howard Brown. Church, we should not be contained in the comfort of our own home, but yet we shall proclaim the gospel to the nations and join in faith and jump into faith. Because, church, we cannot live in fear, but we can only live in the greatness and freedom of our Christ. I agree. God gave us wisdom, but it depends on which wisdom you use. Yours or the Lord's. And at times, our own dependency in our own wisdom puts us in fear, in our livelihoods, and fear of our future. But with that in our eyes, fear is epitomized more over the greatness and capability and security and scale of our awesome God. For example, did Abraham use his own wisdom to become the father of many nations, as well as being the founder of Israel? Did Moses fear the burning bush and just ran? No, he was standing on holy ground. He heard God's voice and humbled himself. Yes, it's scary to step into faith, but when God calls you, you jump into it. But yet again, did Moses fear the Egyptians when the Israelites and him were almost stuck into the borders of the Red Sea? No, he uses faith. He knew that God can open the Red Sea and part it so that his people can cross. He trusted God in the process. How about the apostles? After Jesus told them to go and make disciples of all nations, did they just stay in Jerusalem out of fear of persecution? No. They end up overturning the world upside down due to their faith and trust in Jesus to share the gospel to the world. And truly that is what we should be. Yes, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of understanding, but it's the wisdom of God impartaken to you. Remember when we were children, we used to do bad things and stuff. We used to do what our parents did not tell us what to do. And at times, our fear of the Lord is also love. He reproves us. He corrects us. He guides us into our to righteous paths. And to continue on with Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. And in some other version it says the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. 2020 was a year full of worldly fear, but that worldly fear got us closer to God and understanding His ways. This pandemic was basically a grounding for us Christians. It was more of like a spank. But this year, made us reflect that we need Him the most, and everything we have that was important to us is temporary. This season tested our faith, but let me challenge you with this. What if God tells you to step out of wisdom and step into faith? Remember that God is still the same yesterday, today, and forever. 2021 will be a year of breakthrough in our lives and in your lives, as well as a breakthrough in our own relationship with Christ. Remember, church, remember, friends, brothers and sisters in Christ, don't live in fear. Live in freedom and our hope in Jesus Christ. And truly, Jesus is in control of everything. God is in control